everybody, I'm Dusky! That's not important. And welcome to the video!
Hi, I'm Rambley the Wait!
Oh, is this your screen? My bad, but I'm in the middle of an intro here.
Hold on, I have an idea.
I think I know just what you're gonna say because I definitely am not working with a very limited set of voice lines here. You want me to let you pull in the intro card and then I get out of your animation style?
There you go, buddy. Ooh, I can't wait for you to see everything Indigo Park has to offer!
Thank you, Rambley. As the little guy said, it's time to talk about Indigo Park. I've been getting a lot of requests to do so, and while I don't normally do requests, this one was already something I was considering covering if I felt like the game was gonna give me enough to talk about. Had to wait for it to come out though, and it just did. It released its first chapter on May 18th. Yeah, I know I said on Twitter I was doing a video on something else, but it's a bit of a bigger project, so this works out actually. Gives me a bit more time to pace myself with that. I was a little excited to discuss Indigo Park after playing because I genuinely enjoyed it, but also felt like it had some issues, and you know I love talking about issues. But before we go into that, let me explain what exactly this game is. So, in 2023, Mason Myers, or as the internet knows him, Unique Geese, decided he was going to take it upon himself to learn game development in 1 week and use that knowledge to remake Garten of Banban. Again, all in 1 week. And the resulting game was not half bad. Known as Garten of Banban Reincarnated, it was played by a fair few creators with its original debut video garnering over 1 million views. However, due to conflict with the Euphoric brothers, the game name had to change to just Reincarnated, and after this it was effectively discontinued as Mason wanted to try making something more original with these new game development skills. That something ended up being Indigo Park, a mascot horror game starring the AI assistant Rambley the Raccoon and you as you explore the abandoned Indigo Park. The game was announced 9 months ago and will release in a chapter format with funding for Chapter 2 currently active on Kickstarter. Chapter 1 is relatively short but provides enough for us to get a good early look into this world and its characters. There isn't much story, but most Chapter 1s usually don't give much lore anyway, so that's no problem. It's like a cartoon pilot. It's just trying to introduce you to what it's gonna offer down the line. That being said though, it does have some issues as pilots tend to. I played it on stream and saw a few of them. Disclaimer before we start, the game has some major issues with optimization and texture quality. I did encounter some things like that in my playthrough. At one point, the entire floor disappeared from Molly's area, and when I streamed the game, booting it essentially crashed my stream. But the developer is actively aware of these issues and is fixing them, so I will not be critiquing the game based on these. We are looking at this purely from a gameplay and design standpoint, and we'll hit on points as we come across them. So without further ado, let's hop that fence and get into Indigo Park. The game begins with an old-timey commercial for the park starring Isaac Indigo, the park's founder. I'll say that while this video is short enough not to wear down your patience and has good writing and aesthetic, in my opinion the human animation here looks a little uncanny. He kinda looks like he doesn't know how to use his teeth to talk. But that could just be me. Our base backstory here is that we are named Ed, and we used to go to Indigo Park as a child with a friend of ours. Said friend doesn't want to come along with us, but we plan to find a way inside the park and record it to make a video essay. Crap, I'd better finish mine quick. Guess it'll be easier for me since I don't have to break into anything to do it. Yeah, okay, I'm just rambling. So I have an excuse to show the cool intro cinematic because I think this is legitimately really cool paired with the music. Okay, now we're actually in the game. One silly thing to note right off the bat, the way the character holds the flashlight is kinda weird, but I do appreciate us starting off with it. Games that make you wander around in the dark before you find a light have always annoyed me. That light'll come in handy for our first objective, finding a way into the park. The main gate doesn't work, but entering this side door does, and right away we're greeted with this game's lead mascot, Rambley the Raccoon, who's understandably excited to see us after approximately...
2,000 1,920 days, 4 hours, 23 minutes, and 38 seconds.
He steers us over to the registration desk to the left and gets us registered and ready to enter the park. I love the details of the camera light turning on when he needs to look at you, and of the minor ghosting on the screen when Rambley moves, showing that the screens used here are in worse condition due to abandonment. Interestingly, the ghosting gets worse the lower your graphics settings are. Personally, I think it's cooler this way. Rambley turns out to be unaware that the gate is not open, unfortunately, but in an attempt to salvage this, he sends us on a totally legitimate turn on the generator mini Rambley venture that results in us having to find the missing parts of said generator. That's probably why it wasn't on. Now the gate is open and we can head inside. It's not long before Rambley realizes he forgot to set us up with a critter cuff, a necessity for all guests that lets us access reserved areas and charges us money for our room and any merchandise we buy. We're directed to Critter Corner to get one. When we pick it up, Rambley explains a bit more of what the cuff does. It's also got functions like a pedometer, heart rate monitor, and a mood ring. Very useful? We get one use out of it when the door mysteriously locks and we've got to get it open in a short little tutorial on how to use the cuff. This is honestly a charming way to introduce the mechanic. Now, getting into the real park, I'm beginning to pick up on a few issues. Now, Mason has stated numerous times that there are things the team wanted to do with Indigo Park that they just weren't able to with the limited budget and time they had. After all, Mason was graduating college around the time this chapter completed development, if I remember correctly, and working on a game or any hobbies as a fresh job-hunting graduate can be difficult. I would know. I didn't work on this, though, so I don't know what's feasible and what isn't, so keep in mind that my feedback may not be something they can implement. I'm going to try and keep it reasonable, though. One thing I did recognize was that the environment design in this game is lacking. There are a lot of places where it feels barren and unlike a theme park. According to the story, the park was evacuated rather than abandoned and cleaned out, and assuming no one came back to get anything and no urban adventurers stole major props, it shouldn't be so empty. The issue first arises when we enter these tunnels and Rambley tells us to head to his railroad for a warm-up ride. While Rambley's little quips in this segment are entertaining, the ride queue looks a bit sad. Yeah, you spend like 2 minutes in here, but perhaps there could have been like model train sets in the room and some display cases near the walls showing memorabilia like how Disney does it. I will say that on initial entry though, I like the melancholy view of this lonely dusty statue. When riding the train though, the environment work is stellar. I love the stylized cartoony aesthetic and the character interactions are charming. Sometimes the floor cuts off awkwardly into black walls though. That's the one critique I have. I highly doubt even a black transitionary tunnel would be so dark when the lighting from the next room was being taken into account. Maybe you could do something like having glow-in-the-dark decals on the walls and make them a little off purple instead so it doesn't feel so much like the walls are painted with Vanta black. There is nice environmental storytelling later in the ride when it breaks down here. We see a broken cutout of a character that's gone unmentioned, but if you were looking around in Critter Corner, you'd have seen them on a keychain. This is Salem the skunk, and they'll come up later. For now, it seems like there's something sinister about how the environments seem crafted to push them aside. No plushies in the store, no decals on the walls, and a broken cutout here. I'm interested to see how it develops. Also, possible non-binary rep? Yay! As you all know, non-binary people are evil and make evil potions. I would know, as I am also evil and have been feeding you all evil potions to make you watch my videos. Wait, I shouldn't say. While fixing the train, we also come across some animatronic statues left in storage behind the ride, as well as a reference to an obscure, low-performing Disney ride. I'm assuming these animatronics used to be used in the ride, but were replaced when new, less mechanical mascots were introduced to the park so that kids didn't get confused on which ones were real. One of those new mascots has actually been stalking us during the ride, too. That's most notable during the Toxic X's segment of the ride. Seriously, what is the beef between these two? Rambley absolutely hates this guy Lloyd. Me and a few others are of the firm opinion that this is the result of a messy breakup, but there is a hint to something else in a picture you can see in the ride of Lloyd handing a paper to Rambley. It's been theorized that that's the deed to the park, and that perhaps Lloyd used to be the park's mascot. When Rambley became the main mascot, Lloyd might have gotten cocky and started trying to outperform him popularity-wise, resulting in a strained relationship between the two. But that's just a theory, a gay theory. Exiting the train, we are met with a pretty nice view. The visual of the clock and Ferris wheel in the distance is really pretty, although I'm not sure why the wheel is so functional. Would have thought that definitely would have broken down over time. Unfortunately, this is another area that has some lackluster environmental design. Outside is fine. I've been noticing that's a trend here. The outside of the park is fine, but the insides of buildings aren't interesting. You see, Indigo Park has collectibles you can find by exploring, and you can get some here by entering the side shops. These side shops are the most generic side shops I've seen in an amusement park. I know there was some thought put into the corner stores, like with how you can find moldy food left behind in the cafe, but otherwise there's nothing really unique to them. I'm betting that we'll be returning to this area of the park in future chapters, so perhaps these shops could be spruced up to be themed after characters, like a Rambley themed cafe based on Rambleberry Woods and the Rainforest Cafe, extra opportunity to leave in some creepy dilapidated wildlife animatronics, or a Lloyd the Lion themed shop where kids could have done scheduled crafting activities or play acting to coincide with the theater nearby. That'd make the plushie collectibles found in these shops fit in more too. By the way, if you find these collectibles, you can ask Rambley about them at the information booth. Speaking of Lloyd, we discovered that Jetstream Junction is locked, and that's where we were supposed to go next, so we need to get the key from the back of Lloyd's theater. Upon entry, the man of the hour is right there, but flees when we approach. Interesting, he doesn't seem to have any reservations a few minutes later when he makes a grab for us as we navigate the backstage, nor when he manhandles us as we try to leave after getting the key. He gets scared off by the high-pitched frequency coming out of our critter cuff as it interacts with the door, though. I didn't talk much about the gameplay of this segment because there really isn't any. Lloyd is never a threat to you, so the tension only really lasts for the first time you navigate the area before you know there isn't any danger. He makes a few appearances, but he's not actively a problem. He'll thump around and growl, but you never see him on your way out. I think more could have been done with him here without sacrificing the linear design of the storage maze. Game design rant incoming. If the developers are intent on keeping him as a non-threat in this segment, perhaps he could at least be seen lurking behind the wood pallets since they do have gaps. Him being invisible the whole time despite the visibility of the area around you is a bit odd. If it's important that his body remain in the dark, cats have reflective eyes. If hit with the player's flashlight, his could glow to indicate his presence. However, in the case that Lloyd is allowed to be adjusted to be a threat here, something similar to Foxy from The Joy of Creation could be done with that glowing eyes thing I mentioned. He could approach from different points, and to prevent him from grabbing you through a pallet, you'd need to shine your light in his eyes depending on where the directional sound of his footsteps or growling was coming from. Alternatively, I thought of a stealth-like segment that would have you moving between safe blind spots while Lloyd patrolled behind the pallets looking for you. Well, key acquired. It's on to Jetstream Junction, which is Molly's hub for her rides and her themed side attractions, indicated by the large statue of her here. This place is definitely in need of a bit more love design-wise. It's pretty much just a warehouse with some vending machines and stuff. Even the restaurant screens are extremely generic. There's an attempt with the planes on the ceiling, which I like, but maybe we can amp that mechanic Air Force aesthetic up with, say, some tables that look like gears and benches at the tables that look like the wings of a plane. The metal walls and floor can work with them to create an area more in line with an airplane hangar than a storage unit. Dude, I'm talking like a home renovator at this point. Shit. One cool thing we can find here, though, is an arcade game. It's a 2.5D platformer starring Rambley as he looks for Molly, who crashed somewhere in Rambleberry Woods. I am immediately pleased that an actual pixel artist was hired for this. I have been traumatized since Sonic Prime. At the end of the woods, Rambley finds Molly and additionally Salem, who's named for the first time here. Looks like my smokescreen made her crash right on target.
Salem! I should have known you were behind this, you shady skunk! Let her go!
Nah. How's about I try my new potion on her instead? I'm tired of wasting it on squirrels.
Molly, look out!
Too slow, dumpster face.
What did you do to her?
Meet the new and improved Molly Macaw. Now with none of that friendship garbage stopping her from tearing you to pieces. I wonder what she really thinks of you now. Have fun finding out! This is my audition for Salem, definitely not for Rambley. Thank you for listening. I hope my sister didn't mind hearing that from the next room over. While fighting evil Molly, the berries you picked up count as your health, so don't skip them. On defeat, she screams and the game has a fit before kicking us out and rewarding us with a physical Rambleberry. Maybe this matches a plot thing later, I guess? could correlate to the secret you find in it by going down here 2 platforms past the kissing squirrels to discover a caged Molly that will cut the music and reset the level with a screech. This arcade game is not mandatory, by the way, not as far as I know. If we go where Rambley actually wants us to go, Rooftop Racers, we discover it's been completely trashed due to, according to Rambley, Molly crashing into it. The repairman isn't picking up, so we get diverted to relax at Molly's landing pad, which turns out to be a daycare play place-esque area. To me, it really doesn't fit in with the rest of the place at all and kind of feels like the developers just really wanted to do a scary play place similar to Opila Bird's area in Reincarnated, with them both being birds and all, but it feels oddly placed. Maybe it could just do with an aesthetic adjustment or at least a color adjustment to match Molly a little more. Removing the whole area is kind of unreasonable, but we can work with what we've got. Also, I wish we could kick the balls around, that's always so fun. We can't go into the main part of the play area yet because we need to switch this block here to the symbol shown on the wall next to it to unlock it and cause the lights to go out, making things a lot spookier. To unlock the main door up top, we gotta find the rest of the symbols, so venturing into the main maze is a must, and we are not alone in here, though we are not actively in danger just yet. Molly stalks us the whole time, and I like the detail that her beak is constantly dripping blood where she waits and walks. Is she hurt or has she been hurting people? We may not know now, but the constant flow suggests she's injured. It's possible the mascots here are falling apart after being left alone for so long. Still, it's not until we successfully find all the symbols to unlock the topmost door that Molly's finally ready to be rid of us and begins a chase through the tunnels of the landing pad. This is probably the best segment in the game besides the train. The music is amazing and Molly teleports around, coming out of tubes and trying to cut you off in a manner similar to Dog Day in Poppy Chapter 3. Although this was being made prior to Chapter 3 coming out, so who really came first? The whole time she's spouting off mimicked lines, and if you die to her, it's explained that she can mimic anything she's heard before, and some of these lines indicate that the park mascots weren't treated that well and that she is in pain. While she definitely picked up lines from her own cartoon version segment in the Railroad, she says them in a much more manic fashion that sounds like she actually means it.
It barely hurts at all.
That gameplay tip being given here, though, is odd as it has no relevance to the actual chase itself. I wonder if it'll come up later and Molly will be brought back for another go. One last point about the game over screen, the painting is really nice and is likely a reference to the FNAF fan game Juniors. While most of the chase is solid, there is this one point where you must jump on a trampoline and aim forwards. Why is that a bit of a problem? Every other time we've used one of these, we've had to aim backwards. Aiming forwards here goes against what we've been taught and will probably cause most people to die on their first time doing the chase. Just a minor nitpick. Successfully evading Molly leads you into a hallway where Rambley is surprised to see you heading into a staff area, but quickly lets you in after he notices the murder macaw on your tail, leading to the door closing on her head and chopping it off, which Rambley then proceeds to pretend did not just happen before quickly giving up the act and admitting the true disarray the park is in, having hid it for so long because of his excitement to finally have a visitor, wanting to give them the best experience he could. In the middle of the speech, though, he gets an idea. He does have access to the repair documentation for the park, but can't do it without a human user, leading him to request your help with it and then pretty quickly sign you up for the task as a new official Wrangler staff member. Our first task as a Wrangler is to get out of the staff room and exit back into the park. There is another information booth here we can use to ask Rambley about any new items we picked up in Jetstream Junction, as the booth prior is now unavailable. Right past it, we can find Finley's attraction and catch a brief glimpse of him, but this is where Chapter 1 ends, closing out with a cute and catchy song by Jake Neutron that I encourage you to give a listen to. Indigo Park is a pretty short experience, and despite its many issues, I had fun with it. All my criticism here is honestly out of love for the game and a want to see it succeed and push its concepts farther now that it has the resources to do so. I know I was pretty detailed on the negative side, but even as its developer's second ever game, Indigo Park has some great parts to it that I want to give it credit for, and I can see the passion put into it from pretty far away, cause it's certainly no vanilla mascot game, even if it has some shortcomings. Now that the main summary is over, I can bring up some points that were a little harder to fit in certain places in the script. So quickfire pros and cons, let's go! Having unlimited stamina is nice. Having limited stamina isn't necessarily a bad thing in games, but being able to run around freely is also fun for impatient people and keeps you from worrying about being able to escape from a monster if one does show up. The 2D animation and art scene around the park is well made and full of life. For a game that's relying so much of its characters, putting a lot of effort into this was a good call. The game is good at not letting you be stupid, and by that I mean it's not very easy to jump railings or miss things by accident. For example, the train, which will start moving if you touch it and then get off, but still loads you into the next section anyway. The game is good at directing you on where to go. I never felt like I was lost, and that is usually a big issue for me in games like these because of how forgetful I can be when it comes to verbal directions. I got lost so often in Security Breach. Having the environment layout complement verbal directions is a good thing in games, and this one does that well. Also, the darkness never interfered with my ability to navigate the park, and that is an issue other games have. The lighting is balanced decently well, although sometimes it can be strange while actively adjusting between areas. The game's sound design is amazing. The sounds of small environment details like the stone scraping of Rambley's fountain's rotation and Lloyd's growling in his theater amplify tension, and bigger sound effects like the music, voice acting, and larger environment assets like doors are very high quality. Although I do wish there were different footstep sounds for different ground types, because having the normal hard floor step sound sounds odd while walking around Molly's soft play area and the grass outside. Lloyd's character model looks a bit odd, especially in the main area. It might look better if it was more stylized, similar to how Roxanne Wolf's hair is in her model from Security Breach, and how Lloyd's mane is depicted in his character art. He also does not look much like the original character as much as he looks like a casual lion. Stylizing the mane would allow for more of his original design to shine through and join the two characters more closely. The main character could use some voice acting or at least more animations. It seems odd that they wouldn't react to any of the frightening things happening throughout the park, or at least to the fact that stuff is actively caving in around them. I would at the very least be concerned about getting back out. This ends the quickfire and also our adventure in Indigo Park. For now. Shorter commentary this time, yes, but after I played the game recently, I was just pretty excited to talk about it and wanted to get something out while it was still hot off the presses, you know? This game made me interested, thinking about all the cool stuff I hope it can do now that it has the funding for it, and gave me an excuse to ramble, which I very much like. Anyway, thanks for watching. Pledge to that Kickstarter. This has been Glamrock Dusky, and remember, have a fasserific day! Coco? You might have gotten on the tape, Coco.